Hello, writers, and welcome to the Researchers Writing Podcast. This podcast is for all your researchers in the sciences who want to write papers in a structured and time efficient way so you can get published in top tier journals at a calm and steady pace. In this podcast, we talk about how we can write papers that are clear, concise, and compelling, and how to make the process of writing less hard. My name is Dr. Clemens, and I am an academic writing coach with a PhD in chemistry. In the Researchers Writing Academy, my online program, I've helped hundreds of researchers get their papers published in their target journals using a streamlined writing process. If you want to succeed in your academic career, mentor your students effectively, and have your research make an impact in the world, you are in the right place. Let's get into it. Hello, writers. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today, I am not going to be alone, but I'm being joined by Dr. Kate McAlpine. Dr. Kate McAlpine is a pracademic, as she calls herself, which means she's both an academic and a practitioner. And she's based in East Africa and the UK. Her work is mega important and centered a lot around preventing violence against children. She was a member of the Researchers Writing Academy, and that's what we are talking about during this episode. And this is a really lovely episode. This was a really lovely conversation with Kate. We talked about what she got out of the program, what made the most difference to her, and also how she made time to take the program. And I think that's a very, very important point, because that's what you're kind of often wondering when you're buying, especially online programs. Well, am I actually going to use this? Am I actually going to take this? Like, I'm super busy. So we spent some time on that. And also really, yeah, talking about, she has some recommendations about how she thinks you get the most out of the program and how she got the most out of the program. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into this interview with Kate. Well, hello, Kate. Thank you so much for joining me today. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you today. You were a member of the Researchers Writing Academy. You just graduated, more or less, after 1 year. Um, and yeah, can you tell the listeners a little bit about your research position, where you're based, what your research is about, whatever you want to share about yourself and your research?
Great, thank you. Well, thank you for taking the time to interview me. I'm rather thrilled. Um, I call myself a pracademic, so I am very much about generating practical knowledge that enhances well-being. And I am research associate of a couple of universities, so the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and I'm a fellow of social innovation at Fielding Graduate University in the States. My research, if there's a thread through the research, it's really about learning from young people and other underrepresented groups, and actually learning from their wisdom about how to thrive. And that takes the form of a lot of research on violence prevention in East Africa, a lot of research on what makes a good education, and a lot of participatory action research with young people.
That's super exciting. And such important work as well. And I know you are traveling a lot. You're in all the different places. It's always been fun when you got on calls when you remember, and like it was always a surprise where Kate was joining from that day.
Yeah, I am a bit of a global nomad with itchy feet.
um, Back when you decided to join the program, sometime last year, what was your motivation to join the Researchers Writing Academy? What struggles did you experience regarding writing papers, getting published, or
So,
whatever?
so I
Yeah.
think there was sort of two things going on. One is that I was finding it very hard to carve out time for
Mhm,
writing. I'm sure that's something that many people share the
mhm,
same the same experience. And I think probably because I wasn't identifying writing as being part of my core purpose.
mhm,
And then the second thing was just very much in terms of skills, not really knowing how to write for journals. So even though I do a lot of client reports, the feedback I was getting from journals was that you're writing as if you're writing for an NGO and you're
mhm,
not writing for an academic audience.
mhm,
And I didn't really know what to do with that feedback because
mhm,
I was unsure what an academic audience required. I mean, I find a lot of academic writing so terribly boring and dull that it didn't really seem like a thing to aspire to.
mhm,
But I was like, I'm not going to get published unless I learn this art. So
mhm,
that was the motivation, really.
mhm. Yeah, that's super interesting because I hear this a lot that people who have other experience with writing and then start with academic writing, they just do not get how to
Mm.
hit the right tone. And people have also told me they really struggled with being too wordy, too like flowery, even though
Mm-hmm.
they like that type of writing and the academic writing they saw around. Um, yeah, as you say,
Yeah.
was nothing they wanted to aspire to. And I mean, I totally get that as well, because I think the quality of a lot of papers out there is just,
Mm.
yeah, nothing to aspire to. So it's hard then to know, like, well, what is actually good academic writing? Like, what does it look like?
Yes. Yeah. Very hard to know. Yeah.
Um, when you then joined the RWA, the Researchers Writing Academy, what did you do first? What was sort of your approach to tackling
So,
the
uh,
program?
so I'm a consumer of
Mhm,
educational content. So I
mhm,
spent a weekend and just went through the course from start to finish and took notes and set up the Trello boards and went into planning mode. Um,
mhm.
and I think that really worked for me because it's almost like the content primes you, and
Mhm.
then you need to know, well, how am I going to put this into action? So
Mhm.
that's how I approached it.
Oh, that's really cool. So you like blocked one weekend and you
Mm,
were like, okay, I'm just
yeah,
going to dedicate this one weekend to the course.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Because I think often it seems like, oh, I'm taking a course. It's going to be this big thing. Like, when will I find time to actually
yeah,
watch the lessons? But actually to be like, okay, I just like carve out this weekend once, these two
yeah.
days, and go through it
And
in
I
one
mean,
go.
I think that the way you communicated that it is a writing formula,
Mm.
that I really wanted to know then, okay, what's this special sauce? And I want to know it quickly.
Well, good. Good that that worked.
Yes, yes.
Nice. And did you have any concerns before you joined? Like, was there anything where you were thinking, I'm not so sure if that's going to work, but hopefully then
I
that got
think,
turned around?
I mean, it was quite a serious outlay for me to pay for it. So I was
Hmm.
concerned that, okay, is this going to be a course that I'm going to pay for and isn't really going to fix my issue?
Hmm.
Um, because it is an investment in your professional development. And I think maybe that's why it sort of that informed my approach of, okay, let me suck the marrow from this
Hmm.
quickly.
Hmm.
But really, those concerns were alleviated very quickly once I started to engage with the material.
That's amazing. That's amazing
Mm.
to hear. Yeah, I think this is a common concern. Especially I think because, and I've had this experience as well where I've bought a course and I've bought pricey courses in the past as well that I
Mm.
then maybe didn't get the most out of. And
Yeah,
that's a really, really annoying feeling.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, do you want to talk a bit about what changed since you became a member, since you started learning the formula, since you started engaging more in the other elements of the program? Sort
So
of
I'm
how.
mhm. I think the other elements of the program are almost where the course comes to life,
Mm-hmm.
because it is the accountability from working out loud that makes you put the content into practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I had just done the course and hidden away and not taken advantage of the accountability club, of the community, of the co-writing sessions, I wouldn't have systematically applied what I learned in the material. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that design element that you have really is powerful. I think what changed for me is I started to write
Mm-hmm.
and to
Nice.
identify it as writing,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed, I mean, I had obviously been writing before because I write stuff, but I'd never in my head said, this is my writing time, and had a set of rituals and processes around writing time.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started to do that, I actually started to enjoy the writing time more. And
Oh,
so
that's
then you
so
start to
nice.
get this positive feedback loop of, oh, that wasn't so bad. That wasn't. So I started probably thinking, I'll do 2 writing sessions a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I carve my writing sessions now into 50-minute increments, as you advise.
Mm-hmm.
But, routinely at this summer, I've probably then been doing 10 to 15 writing sessions of 50 minutes
Whoa,
a
that's a
week
lot.
because, one, I've had a lot of writing to do, but two, it's I've got that really workable formula now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the big thing that's changed, is that I'm writing and I call myself a writer and I'm
Mm-hmm.
churning out stuff. But I think that in the early days, the most useful thing was the process. So I think the most useful trick you have is that Trello board
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to plan out a paper
Mm-hmm.
and carve it out and have your roadmap is so, so useful. And I now use that pretty much for every bit of writing, whether it's a client paper, whether it's a journal paper, whether it's a conference presentation. I use that process. And then I have a separate sort of Asana planning board for each writing session. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's been very helpful in building the infrastructure that you need
Yeah,
as a writer.
yeah. Fantastic. Wow. Well, I mean, congratulations on writing so much. And like,
Yeah,
what I love is that you say you're enjoying writing because I think that's
yeah,
really at the core of it because when we enjoy something, we do more of it. And I say this all the time, but I think it's
mm,
just, it's so true. And like, I think it's so hopefully nice to know for people listening that even if writing right now feels to you like, I mean, often like
mm,
we have a lot of bad emotions with connected with writing. So for a lot of
yeah,
people, it feels awful. And like the fact that you're not writing just can feel
yeah.
so horrible. I don't know how it was for you, if you can relate to that.
It just
Um,
felt like such a drag. It was such a source of procrastination. And then, of course, you feel guilty that you're procrastinating.
mm. Yeah, I mean, that's so common. And yeah, thank you for sharing that because that's such a fantastic transformation and
Yeah,
really
and I do feel quite
all I hope
transformed,
for.
actually. Yes, I really do. I mean, it's even then my relationship with feedback from journal articles has sort of
Mhm.
changed. So I actually
Uh-huh.
got some feedback today that was like, this needs major revision.
Mhm.
And in the past, I would have then said, oh, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to set it aside. I can't face going back into this body of
Mhm.
work.
Mhm.
But this time I was quite sort of resilient and robust. It was like, okay, take a deep breath, look at what they're saying. Yep, this is possible. Oh, let me bring in a co-author to work on it with me.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, no, I can rebound back from that feedback rather than saying, oh, I'm not a writer because the journal's asked for major revisions.
Ah, that's interesting. That's an interesting mindset shift um, that I haven't thought about before. But you're so right, because I think when we're in the state where writing is just like, oh, we feel awful about our writing, we don't
Mm,
feel like competent in it.
yeah.
We don't have this resilience. We often like it's almost all our
Mm,
energy goes into the negative emotion instead of into actually solving the problems. And I mean,
yeah.
getting major revisions is like the most normal thing in the world for researchers. Like, I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on the field, but I've almost never heard of an article that just got accepted. Minor revisions also, in my experience,
Mm,
super, super rare. So major revisions is just what happens, and just knowing,
yeah.
yeah, like that's just the next step in the process, and I'm ready and here for it, and I can tackle it, and being like solution oriented. I really love that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was quite surprised with my reaction because I was like, I really don't want to have to spend more time on this. But I was like, no, it's okay. I'll bring in a colleague and we can do this. I won't do it tomorrow, but give me a week or two, I'll get back into it.
Yeah.
Um, so it has completely sort of pivoted my relationship with writing. Um, and I think made me easier. Like I used to hate being edited
Uh-huh.
because then I was just like, oh God, it's going to lead to more bloody writing. And now I'm actually, oh no, actually, editing is quite a nice thing to have done. Other people having eyes on you is generative. It's not just creating another burden.
Yeah, that's so lovely. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Because I personally enjoy writing a lot, and it always saddens me to know that other people are struggling with it and they don't see the
Yeah.
beauty in it. And I just think, yeah, it can be such a source of like
Mm.
creativity and like real like sense of accomplishment. Um, yeah, really love that. Did you, I mean, you were talking also about the other elements we have in the Researchers Writing Academy, and you mentioned co-writing sessions that
Mm.
you attended. So we have a few per week of those. Do you remember how many you attended? Like, how often did you?
When I was a settled week, I'd try and get a couple of those in. Yeah.
Nice. That already
Yeah.
is a lot. Getting these 2 hours of regular writing in per
Yeah. And
week.
actually that's the thing I'm missing now that I'm graduated is the community bit. That was just really nice to be writing with
Mm,
people from your team and other people.
mm. Did you also went to some writing retreats, right? Where we have like longer spans
Yes,
of
those
writing.
those were great. They were really, yeah, they were a really good way of mobilizing around a big piece of work.
Mm,
Um, so I did a couple of them, and yeah, they were superb.
lovely. Yeah, they are. So we meet for 3 hours on them, but that includes also like a goal setting bit, a meditation in
Mm,
the beginning, some reflection, some celebration, but we're all together
yeah,
writing. Yeah, I love those too. Um, it's really nice. It's just nice also not doing it alone and just feeling like, okay,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, it's like this creative boost, like other people are working on their things. We're all writing. Can you share any like specific results in terms of did you get papers published? Like, does the publishing process feel easier or has it changed in any way for you? Um, is there
yeah.
anything that comes to mind?
So yeah, while I was on the course, I think I wrote and submitted 3 papers to
Well, that's
journals and got one published, and then 2 are being reviewed. One of which has come back needing major revision. But they said, we're still keen to continue with this.
yeah.
So, I mean, again, if you're not a frequent academic writer, that whole publishing process is a little bit like, oh my God. Uh,
I mean, it just takes so much time, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
this is the challenge for me asking people about, so how many papers did you get published? Because usually they get published like sometimes years after they've taken the course.
yeah,
It's just how it is, unfortunately. It's just yeah.
yeah. No, I got much more. I mean, of course, the conference thing is much more accessible in some ways. I think I've done
Mm.
4 papers for conferences
Oh,
in the
wow.
last year. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow. You had a lot of
yeah,
output, Kate.
yeah. No, I churn out quite a lot of output.
Yeah.
Um,
Amazing. Wow.
but yeah, my business is supposed to be research. So if I don't churn it out, I'm not getting any work.
That's a good motivation.
Yeah.
No, still, well done. Well done. You really Yeah, you really did well. Um, which aspect of the whole Researchers Writing Academy did you like the most if you had to pick? Or you can mention several as well, but what were you sort of most excited about?
I think the formula, the
Mhm.
actual formula. I mean, it sounds so stupid, but I had never thought about starting to write my paper from the point of view of what are the key findings.
Mhm.
I mean, I know that maybe so you're like, why wouldn't you? But I really had never thought that that would be the starting point.
Mm.
Um, and I think that starting from the key findings, then articulating the problems, and then
Mhm.
scaffolding your literature review of the problems
Mhm.
to get the introduction and what an introduction looks like is great. Um, so that was just like a big aha,
Mm.
all of that. But I think the bit I enjoyed most was the community stuff.
Mm. Nice. Lovely. Did you ever join a writing sprint?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
You
yeah,
did.
yeah.
How did that go?
Also fab.
Good. Yeah, we started hosting writing sprints where we kind of facilitate writing more intensely for 2 weeks, Monday to Friday. And we started offering some like live course around it, like open writing room, like loads of kind of check-ins at the beginning, at the end of the day, and things like that. Yeah, which has been super fun. I'm really glad to see how
Yeah,
many
it's so
find this
helpful. I
useful.
mean, just that sort of accountability check with colleagues is so helpful.
Would you recommend others to join the Researchers Writing
No,
Academy?
yeah, it goes without saying, it really does.
And would you recommend it to anyone in specific? Like, do you think, yeah, at a certain career stage or with a certain problem or anything like that?
I don't know about that, but I'd recommend it to people who are willing to put their time into putting it into practice.
Hmm.
I think if you say, oh, well, I just want to write with other people, well, great, but you don't really, that's not where the value lies. I think you do want people who've got the appetite to engage with the formula
Mm.
and then a safe space to apply it. But if you're
Mm.
not going to engage with the formula, I don't think you'll get the value.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say to someone who's like on the fence of joining, who isn't quite sure if it's the right thing for them?
I'd say try and reflect why you're on the fence because
Mm.
it's quite what it is requiring you to step into being a writer with all that that involves. So it's a bit of a shift in your identity. It's a lot more time dedicated to writing. And it may be that you're on the fence because you're like, I'm not quite ready to commit to those
Mm.
things.
Mm. I love that answer. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, where I learned a technique which I'm actually gonna share on the podcast as well, or have shared at the point
Mm-hmm.
when this episode comes out, to like kind of uncover a bit more of these like subconscious blocks we have to
Mm-hmm.
things when we think we have a goal, but we are not ready to pursue it.
Yeah,
Um, I think often there's something like underlying where we're like, yeah, that we might not be aware of because
yeah, yeah,
we just think, oh, and then we have all these excuses. And we're like, I just don't have time. Which, of course, no, none of us have time, you know. I mean, you, Kate, also super busy,
yeah.
and you still manage to cover time to apply the course, to take the course, to actually make like, yeah, great use of the course.
So there's a really interesting um, model that maybe you'd be interested in about this. It's by Keegan and Lahi, and it's called
Okay.
Competing Commitments.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it's actually a process that you can work through to understand exactly this. I say I want to do this, but my behavior indicates that I don't want to do this. So what's going on unconsciously
Ah.
that is actually the barrier to my change? Um, and that might be really a useful preliminary for people to go through
I will
you
look
know,
at this up. This sounds
yes.
amazing. Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you want to add that I haven't asked? Anything else you think could be useful?
No, I mean, I would just say that yes, from my personal experience, I am a massive advocate of the Researchers Writing Academy. And it's been a joy from start to finish being part of it. And if anybody wants to step into becoming an academic writer, this is definitely a portal to do that.
Oh, thank you, Kate. And it's been amazing having you as a member too. And we do miss you.
I know. I might come back. I'm doing co-writing with my sister-in-law at the moment, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back.
Oh,
It's always sad for me when people leave because
yeah.
you get so used to having people there. Um, do you want to share any links, anything?
Uh, so my personal website, which is a bit crappy, is drkatemcalpine.co.uk.
Mhm.
But the work I do is on www.connectgo.co.uk and www.citizensforchange.net. So
Okay.
at your discretion, whatever you want to share.
Yeah,
And
we'll
I'm
share
not
them
and I'm
all.
not on social media.
Oh, that's good.
That's what's saving all my time to become a
Right, that's
writer.
how you make the time.
Exactly.
Um, Now, it sounds amazing. We'll put those links in the show notes. And yeah, your research is so fantastic and important. And yeah, I encourage
Oh,
everyone
thank you.
to look it up and get to know Kate. And also, I have to disagree. Your website looks amazing. Your personal website. I went on there earlier.
Oh,
Um,
bless you.
well, thank you so
Good,
much, Kate,
good.
for
Yes,
taking
no,
the
well,
time.
no, and thank you for everything, really. Yeah, I miss it too.
You're so welcome.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Bye, Kate.
Bye bye.
Are you unsure whether enrolling in the Researchers Writing Academy, my online program, would be the right next step for you? Then, if you're not quite sure, I highly, highly, highly recommend you to take my free introductory training. There, you'll get the bird's eye view of what the journal publication formula, that's my step by step system to write clear and concise papers, really is. So just type in researcherswritingpodcast.com/free and get access to that free training right away. So type in researcherswritingpodcast.com/free and access your training. Let's get back to the episode. All right, let's get to our listener question. And today's question is the process for writing qualitative papers and quantitative papers different, or maybe even mixed methods papers? Um, and thank you so much for that question, anonymous listener. I love that question because I get asked it a lot. So I'm glad I get the chance to clarify this today. So my answer to this question is no. So the ideal process, I think, for writing a paper, a scientific paper, a research paper, is exactly the same, no matter whether, you have a quantitative, qualitative study, mixed methods study, whatever. It really doesn't depend on the approach you used for obtaining your data. The basics are the same. I recommend as a first step to develop the story of your paper before you start writing, then to outline your sections, and only once you have an outline to actually fill each section with words. I'm elaborating on this process in a previous episode. We'll link to that one in the show notes. And well, this means that, as actually Kate earlier mentioned, the whole process starts with isolating your key findings. So you want to then build your story, the story you want to tell based around those. And for a qualitative paper, these are then, of course, qualitative findings. Like that is the main difference. These findings often are themes that you identified if you did interviews, for example, focus groups. Or maybe these aren't the themes, but they are like further synthesized from the themes. They're more conclusions. For quantitative paper, these are quantitative findings. So in that case, it's often a little bit easier to kind of pinpoint these in a quantitative paper because, well, you have like kind of very like precise, specific measurements. But often this is still a challenge. So I don't want to say one is harder than the other. But the way you write your introduction section, your discussion section, that's exactly the same. And also the results section is actually pretty similar. Only again that for quantitative papers, you then give, quantitative findings, so specific numbers, measurable things, quantifiable findings. And for qualitative studies, the findings are quotes, right? Or descriptions or paraphrase quotes. So the way you structure these papers is exactly the same. In other words, the journal publication formula really works for both types. Though I will say that it was developed more for quantitative papers. I initially developed it with quantitative papers in mind. But since so many qualitative researchers have joined the academy, and also I keep getting asked this question if it does work for qualitative papers. And I think there is especially a lack of guidance on writing qualitative papers. We're slowly adding more material into the course and also more examples for qualitative research, for writing qualitative research papers in particular. So yeah, we're also always happy to give feedback on qualitative studies. During our calls, we have feedback calls where we give feedback on your writing and implementing the journal publication formula. And we have storytelling workshops once a month where we help you develop your story. So super happy to assist you with your specific questions on your specific paper, no matter what method you use, no matter what approach you're using. Yeah, so I hope this answered your question. And yeah, thank you very much for listening in today. I hope this was a fun episode to listen to. I hope you enjoyed getting to know Kate. And I'll see you soon. Bye. If you would like to submit a question for me to answer on the podcast, please head to researcherswritingpodcast.com/question. That's researcherswritingpodcast in one word.com/question. And if you enjoyed this podcast episode, it would really mean the world to me if you could review it in your favorite platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whichever app you're using. The more reviews a show has, the more likely it will be shown to others who are looking for podcasts in the academic writing space. So thank you.